listening to another episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns.
Man, I feel like we haven't done this in a month, Bill. I actually just said that off the air, too. What's up, everybody? It's your guy, Bully Rye, and you are watching another football episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns alongside Banker Bill, as I am for all of my football shows. Bill, what's up, bud?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, to be honest. Kind of excited to talk about this again. You and I talk about football a lot, but before the show, I kind of I don't want to say I cram, but I spend at least a couple hours just reading football stuff, right? Football, whatever we're going to talk about, like I kind of just look, and then I also look for other stuff too. And it's probably the most sports stuff that I go over specifically during the week. And man, it gets me excited. I ended up reading stuff about Caitlin Clark. Like, that's weird. Like, I just branched off and started reading other stuff. But yeah, I'm ready to talk about football, man. It's we're getting there. We're getting to some really exciting stuff that's going to start happening.
Yeah, you lost me at Caitlin Clark. As much as I talk about women's basketball on this show, Caitlin Clark is not somebody that I look up. All right. We got a lot to get to tonight, so let's hop right into it. And our favorite, at least my favorite segment of the show is Homer's Corner. And I'm going to start us off here this week because there has been a proposal laid by the Carolina Panthers in the city of Charlotte where they are seeking $800 million in renovation to the Carolina Panthers Bank of America Stadium to keep that team here in the NFL for another 20 years. Now, Bill, the renovation would include, this is all from NFL.com via the Associated Press. It would include $650 million investment from the city and only $150 million from Panthers owner David Tepper, who has reportedly already invested more than $117 million into the stadium up to this point. My Homer's Corner is talking about how the fact that I think this is garbage. The Kansas City Chiefs, I've been wanting to talk about this on this show for weeks, and we just never got around to it. The Kansas City Chiefs are trying to do the same thing with Arrowhead Stadium regarding looking for taxpayer money to pay to either rebuild or renovate their stadium. And the idea is, a la the Oakland Athletics and the Oakland Raiders and the Seattle Supersonics, if they're not willing to come up with the public funding to do it, they're going to leave. Now, David Tepper's not come out and said that because he does have a soccer club here in Charlotte as well. But to me, the idea that an owner in professional sports would hold a city and a state hostage in order to make sure that they're not footing the whole bill. David Tepper is worth $20.6 billion with a B dollars. Now, I understand that's not all like fluid cash money. It's not like he's got $20.6 billion that he can pull out and do it all himself. I understand there's logistics behind all of it. But the idea that you're worth $20.6 billion and you only want to pay for a fourth of this renovation is ridiculous to me. I also should mention that they have said that the funding will exist, will be the city share would be funded by existing hospitality and tourism tax resources, which are legally required by the state to be spent on projects to support the city's tourism economy. This is the direct quote. So they're saying that taxes aren't going to be increased and they're not going to be any new taxes placed in order to make the renovations and to invest in the stadium. But we all know how that goes in every other situation. They will find that money somewhere to take from the citizens of the city of Charlotte and the citizens of North Carolina. And I think it's garbage. When you're worth over $20 billion and you only want to spend a fourth of what it's going to cost to renovate your stadium, shame on you. And it's why David Tepper continues to be the worst owner in sports. Bill, that's my Homer's Corner. I hope I didn't like the dynamite too hot for you, because I think you have a little different Homer's Corner to talk about tonight when you want to talk about Tyreek Hill and his contract request. This is news to me, so I'm curious to see what you have to say about it because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so we know that Justin Jefferson, and we're going to talk about it later. I think we actually had it listed as one of our topics.
Next
so
segment, next segment.
But so a little foreshadowing, we are going to talk about Justin Jefferson's new contract. He's going to get paid more money than any other non-quarterback player in the history of the NFL, $35 million per year. As a result, Tyreek Hill has come out and said he would like a raise as a member of the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tyreek Hill signed his contract with the Miami Dolphins after he was traded for, and the Dolphins did a trade and sign situation. And at that time, they paid him more than any other wide receiver in the NFL, an average of $30 million per year. They backloaded the contract. His cap hit in 2 years is $56 million, $31 million this coming year. He would like to be paid, I guess, more than Justin Jefferson. Tyreek Hill led the league in receiving last season, 171 targets, 119 receptions, something like that. Something ridiculous. So he was a fantastic wide receiver, obviously. Had some drops in some pretty key times also. I mean, we all kind of, if you're a Tyreek Hill fan or a Miami Dolphins fan, you kind of a couple times went, that did happen. But it is really odd to me. I guess my Homer's Corner is, I don't know what the opinion of people that watch our show or people that follow the NFL, how they feel about a situation like this where a player signs we call it market setting, right? We talked about Amon-Ra's contract setting the market. He is now the fourth highest paid. I'm sorry, is it the third highest paid wide receiver in sports? I think Tyreek is fourth currently. But Tyreek Hill was the market setter in 2022. He signed a contract, and now he does not want to finish out the contract. He wants a raise from that contract because the market has gone up. Now, that was going to happen. We all know this happens in sports. I just wonder how people feel. I know how I feel. I see both sides. I get it. You want more money. The market gets raised. You're as good as or a better player than Justin Jefferson. That's up for debate. They're very close. Justin Jefferson was injured last season. Tyreek Hill has not spent a lot of time being injured in his career. But it really irritates me from a, I guess, fan perspective and possibly the business side perspective of football that these players sign contracts for massive deals where they flaunted, I got the bag. And 2 years later, while he signed a 4-year contract, 2 years later, the bag isn't big enough. That really, let's just say it pisses me off. I really, at this point, I'm a big Tyreek Hill fan. I'm a huge Miami Dolphins fan. I'm a fan of watching Tyreek Hill play on Sunday. I am not rooting for him to get a raise. I'm not going to do that. But on the other hand, I am. I hope the man gets what he deserves. I hope he feels like, or if he feels like he deserves 35 million, 36 million, whatever, I hope he gets what he deserves. I just don't. I'm not a fan of not fulfilling your contractual obligations after you signed it and they made you the highest paid player 2 years ago. I wonder how everybody else feels about that. Ryan, I'll ask you your opinion on that subject.
I'll give it to you in a second, real quick. Mama Frick's in the house tonight. He wants to know where your hat is tonight.
I went Shannon gray hair today. I went gray hair.
Shannon Smith was saying that Tyreek was an MVP candidate, and Justin just didn't finish a whole season. So he thinks Tyreek Hill does have a leg to stand on. My opinion, I mean, listen, we haven't gotten to it yet, but Justin Jefferson is now the highest paid NFL non-quarterback in history. So Tyreek Hill is now saying, I want to be that guy. So at some point, when's enough going to be enough? I mean, is Tyreek Hill going to sit out a season because he's not getting paid more than Justin Jefferson? Because that's not a good look. If you're going to go out here and say that your goal is to win a Super Bowl, and then you're going to elect to sit out because you're not getting paid more money than, he's making an incredibly stupid amount of money. Everybody in the NFL is. Even the practice squad guys are making six figures. They never see the field and they're making six figures to play football. Like, if I was 6'4", I would have tried to play a sport. Granted, I'm 5'7", and I did, but the idea is that, like, you have the gifts to play a game for a living. And if that game can make you rich beyond your wildest dreams, awesome. But you also had guys like Dak Prescott, who just came out a few weeks ago and said, I've never been about the money. I just want to come out here and win. Now, granted, his agent is about the money. And so whether or not he goes back to Dallas next year and gets paid is yet to be seen. But and maybe he's just blowing smoke. Maybe it's all smoke and mirrors. because he wants to look like the anti-Tyreek Hill, the anti-Justin Jefferson, the guy that's like, I'm just here to win football games.
Right.
Because I think at the end of the day, Tom Brady took pay cuts to put guys on his roster that were going to lead them to Super Bowl victories, because you get bonuses for winning playoff games. You get bonuses for winning Super Bowls. You get rings for winning Super Bowls. I mean, I'm glad that Justin Jefferson is out here getting paid. I'm upset. I'm upset for you, and I'm upset for fans of teams with wide receivers who are in the middle of contract disputes. Brandon Ayuk, he's not going to get Justin Jefferson money, but he's going to want Justin Jefferson money now. He's going to want Amon-Ra St. Brown money now. So yeah, it's frustrating. I wouldn't say it makes me angry unless it was like affecting somebody on my team, then it would. But it's going to be one of those things like, when is enough going to be enough? I mean, baseball has gradually over the years become less and less popular. It started during the strike in the 1990s, and then more people were turned away from the steroid abuse and the steroid scandal, especially when they found out that the home run race between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, years later, we found out it was marred by steroids and juiced balls and all that stuff. It leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. Now, granted, we've talked about on this show too, Bill, that the NFL will continue to grow in popularity despite itself. And I feel like that's one of these situations. But there have been people who have veered away from the NFL over the last few years for various political reasons. And it might get to the point where people are like, you know what? Football's not that fun. And when these guys are getting mad because they're making $20 million when they want to make $30 million, I don't really care to watch that. It's the same reason why we don't watch, whatever the money shows on CNBC are, where they're watching people talk about stock market. They don't have the money to invest in. Why do they want to watch football when these guys are making more money than we'll ever see in our lifetime to play a game, and they want more? So yeah, I can see your frustration there. It's funny because Shannon Smith back in said, you watched my appearance on Out of Pocket with all the baseball references. It's funny because I didn't get a chance to catch it, but it's just great when it's thinking alike, man. That's all it is. As sports fans, we know what we're talking about. But I digress. That was a good little Homer's Corner. We went, I think, a little longer than I wanted to, but I'll take it because it was good conversation. A matter of fact, I feel bad because I didn't even ask you about what your thoughts were about the stadium renovations for the Panthers, any or just in general. You want to touch on it? Or you want to move on?
I actually have a little bit of context. So that happened with the Miami Dolphins, where Steve Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, actually, he wanted to. We had a stadium that was built in 1986. It was Joe Robbie Stadium. It became all kinds of different things. Landshark Stadium for Jimmy Buffett had their naming rights for a while. They made it. I don't remember what it ended as. Maybe just Dolphin Stadium because they were like having issues with the different naming rights, whatever. He wanted the same situation. He wanted the community to pay with their taxes for stadium renovations. They wanted to put a roof on it. The roof that they ended up was like a cantilever roof. It's pretty cool. I mean, Hard Rock Stadium, and then they got a naming rights with Hard Rock Casino, so it's the Hard Rock Stadium now. What ended up happening there, Ryan, was he was really upset, and there was also that talk about the team possibly moving, and they're like, what would happen if Miami stay the Dolphins if they move to wherever, Oklahoma City or something like that. And I was actually making decisions like, hey, would I still be a Dolphins fan if they were playing in Oklahoma City? Like, would I care? Probably not. Actually, that was actually I was thinking, I'll probably bail. But at that time, it didn't end up happening. What ended up happening, and here's how they solved it: the city of Miami, the area, I guess the county, gave the team tax breaks. So they have tax breaks on paying taxes to the county and the city, blah blah blah, Miami Gardens, whatever. On the stadium, so he didn't get actual tax money help or taxpayers help to do the renovations. He paid it out of his own pocket, but in return, they gave him tax breaks for I don't know how many, like 10 years or something like that, for the stadium. So Ross was good with that. He paid for it out of his pocket. It was $400 million came out of his pocket. So we'll see what happens with the Panthers situation.
I think David Tepper ought to come out of pocket the same way.
I don't think Ross is not as wealthy as David Tepper, I don't believe.
And he still did it. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's why David Tepper is the worst owner of sports. All right, let's move on. We got some NFL talk to get to because we're going to end the show talking UFL playoffs this weekend. But we mentioned it in Homer's Corner. There are a couple of contract extensions that went on in the NFL over the last week. First one being Justin Jefferson. 4 years, $140 million. $110 million of which is guaranteed. I believe that he is due at signing 88.4 something like that million dollars. And I've already said it on the show here. He is now the highest paid non-quarterback NFL player in history. I think because we talked a lot about the fact that, like, when is enough as far as money goes. Do you think Justin Jefferson is worth this contract, Bill?
Not last year. The year before? Look, we've talked about it on here, and I feel like I know now more than I ever have that wide receivers make a huge difference, especially in this NFL. Back in the day, it was running backs, probably offensive line. I think I watched the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill. I don't want to say change the game, but they at least changed my perception of the game. And that's why we still have the Tua debate, whether or not Tua is the one that makes the difference or Tyreek makes the difference. We're not sure. But anyway, I feel like wide receivers are more important than they ever have been, especially the way we pass in this game. Getting separation from cornerbacks, getting open for your quarterback is important. That is something Justin Jefferson is very good at. So is he important to that offense? Absolutely. Last season, he was injured. That makes him worthless, obviously, and you're paying him for nothing. Do I think he's worth that amount of money? That is a very difficult question. I would say, based on the market, yes. If Amon-Ra St. Brown gets paid over $30 million, then Justin Jefferson is definitely worth 35 because I think he's a better receiver. I don't know if he's better than Tyreek Hill, but he catches. You look at his statistics, barring last year because of the injury, he catches 129 receptions a year before, something like that. It's insanity. So, I think he's worth a lot of money. I think that's the way the NFL is going. I think wide receivers are going to continue to get paid. You watch Jalen Waddle pick up a pretty nice bag the other day, and honestly, that I feel like is a bargain now because I think he's as dangerous as some of these other players. And I would take. No offense, Ryan. I would take, obviously, it's a homer thing, but I think I would take Jalen Waddle over Amon-Ra St. Brown in the state of the NFL. I think he would be a better receiver with better stats if Tyreek wasn't on his team. And he's still getting over 1,000 yards this season. So, yeah, it's crazy, man. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money when you're watching. But who's more important? It was always quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher. Now I feel like we're putting wide receiver up there now.
So it's funny you mentioned all that because he made this money with Kirk Cousins at quarterback.
I know.
Now,
you know what?
Now he's got J.J. McCarthy is coming in. We don't know how good he's going to be.
Right.
And so what if he's absolute dog crap and Justin Jefferson?
It's not going to be his fault. It's not going to be his fault. It's not going to be Jefferson's fault. I don't think they're going to blame him. But I do think J.J. McCarthy is going to come along a lot better because Justin Jefferson is on the field. I think that's going to make him look better.
That's honestly, that's probably the best assessment of the situation. Congratulations to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Also, congratulations goes out to Christian McCaffrey, who once again, one of the most talented, if not most talented overall player in the NFL. He gets a contract extension worth 2 years, $38 million. The knock was because he was getting banged up in Carolina, and I think it's because of the fact, looking back now, because Carolina didn't have anybody else. He was the one toting the ball every single play. He was catching. I mean, he had 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving on his own, which doesn't happen very often. So now he's got an extra 2 years on his contract. I believe his contract now runs through 2028. So for all intents and purposes, it looks like Christian McCaffrey is going to retire a San Francisco 49er. Bill, you think McCaffrey was worth this extra 2 years, $38 million?
I don't know, man. So correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this the most a running back has ever been paid?
It could be $19 million a year.
I would think. Yeah, I mean Saquon's making 9. I think is making 9 this year, maybe 10 with the Eagles. That's a lot for a running back. Is Christian McCaffrey a difference maker? Of course. Is he worth double the next best guy? Not sure, but I mean, good for him. Like you said, we are probably removed from his injury seasons because of the workload that he's not receiving in San Francisco compared to what he was receiving in Carolina. But, I mean, doubly better than the next guy? I don't know. I don't know. Got to win a Super Bowl. That's the most important thing. If you win a Super Bowl, nobody will care.
To your point, he is the top paid running back in the NFL currently. at 19 million per year standpoint, you would never guess who number 2 is. You want to take a quick guess about it? And by the way, Shannon Smith also says another MVP candidate getting paid, and Christian McCaffrey. Absolutely right.
It's not what's his name from the Panthers, is it?
No, Miles Sanders. No, not at all.
Didn't you get 12?
Miles Sanders
12.
He's 12. Number 2, Alvin Kamara, making $15 million a year.
15. Okay. Wow. See,
Number
that's
3,
a lot for me too. That's a lot. I mean, Kamara, what does he do now? I mean, he's getting hurt all the time. He's old.
And number
he's not
3,
old, but he's been around forever.
He feels old because he's been around so long. Number 3 was Jonathan Taylor, and number 4 is Saquon Barkley at 12.6, just beating out Josh Jacobs for Green Bay, making $12 million a year.
Man,
so,
Jonathan Taylor, other than his, here we go. He got injured, so it's these injury situations. These guys get hurt, and you're paying this much for this one dude that could be out like that. I mean, McCaffrey might not make opening day. That's what happens with these running backs. It's so easy for them to get nicked and be done. So that's why they're not valued high, and 19 million's a lot. So wow, good for him though.
Well, let's talk about our last NFL topic, and it's something that you brought up that you wanted to talk about. You sort of debated whether or not you want to talk about this or Tyreek Hill and Homer's Corner, and I didn't know how to phrase the question.
Yeah.
And so I phrased the question: is C.J. Stroud the next star quarterback in the NFL, or is he the next Mac Jones? And I think you have some comparative numbers to provide to show that maybe people need to pump the brakes on C.J. Stroud, because Mac Jones had very comparable numbers in his rookie year.
He
so I'm gonna let you take it away. This is all yours, man.
So here, let's throw. We're gonna give him 5 stats, 5 important stats in the passing game. Okay, well we'll just call it team record. Their rookie seasons: Mac Jones 10-7, C.J. Stroud 10-7. Passing yards in their rookie season: Mac Jones 38.01, C.J. Stroud 41.08. So he beat him by 300 yards.
300 yards. Yeah.
Passing TDs: Mac Jones 22, C.J. Stroud 23. QBR. So this is your rating of everything you do as a passer, as a quarterback, not just passer rating, because passer rating, C.J. Stroud has him. But QBR is everything you do. QBR: Mac Jones 56.9, C.J. Stroud 57.5. Very close.
Yeah.
Completion percentage, which is very important, obviously. Mac Jones 67.6, C.J. Stroud 63.9. Now, their yards per attempt, C.J. Stroud is higher. C.J. Stroud is higher in air yards. There are a lot of things that trend well for C.J. Stroud. However, when you look at what they were as rookies, Mac Jones was also seen as the heir apparent to Tom Brady after his rookie season has completely fallen off the table. The reality is C.J. Stroud is more comparable to players like Gardner Minshew, who wasn't terrible as a rookie. Justin Herbert is right there with C.J. Stroud. Now, granted, people will say Justin Herbert's a top 5 quarterback. I still don't believe it. He's never been as good as he was when he was a rookie. Who knows, man? The reality is Mac Jones did that with Jacoby Myers as his best wide receiver. Jacoby Myers, you want to hear that one again? Jacoby Myers was the best wide receiver on the New England Patriots when Mac Jones put up those statistics. C.J. Stroud had weapons. Tank Dell, Nico Collins. He had guys that were established, right? Well, Tank Dell obviously wasn't an established rookie, but it was unbelievable, right? Yeah. Had amazing season, super fast. C.J. Stroud had way better weapons than Mac Jones, and Mac Jones put up really similar statistics. The other guys that are on the list, Gardner Minshew, Justin Herbert, they were on pretty bad teams coming in. C.J. Stroud's team obviously was we thought the roster was terrible, and they ended up being a whole lot better than we thought, right?
They made the playoffs.
They reloaded with a lot of young players. So anyway, you and I have been talking about people ranking the Houston Texans ahead of every team in the AFC except for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And maybe the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills, I still don't know who Josh Allen's throwing to. I still couldn't tell you. I mean, if Chase Claypool's your cup of tea, have fun. But yeah, I think we should pump the brakes real hard on the Texans really quick until we figure out if CJ Stroud's going to fall into that sophomore slump, or we see what he does as a second-year player, knowing that there are a whole bunch of players that didn't really pan out. Justin Herbert, I'm not going to say isn't that guy, But Gardner Minshew, Mac Jones, those are those types of players that still can't find a starting job in the NFL. And they had similar statistics to CJ Stroud in their rookie seasons.
I'm glad you mentioned we need to pump the brakes on the Texans, and I'm going to touch that in a second. Your daughter Katie's in the chat, say not the whole list of stats. And then Tim Costello says Gardner and Eustache are going to dominate. It's funny you mentioned that because I just talked to Bill over the weekend that it sounds like Aiden O'Connell is going to get the opportunity to start. But
Ridiculous.
I've also seen reports that Spencer Rattler is going to compete with Derek Carr to be the starter in New Orleans. So, but I digress. Let's get back to Houston for a minute. Yeah, like I said it last year, like if CJ Stroud was put on the Panthers, I'm not sure he would have been able to do much better than Bryce Young did. So it's always like that flashy new toy. Like you get on Christmas morning, like, oh, this is really cool. You play with it for a couple months and maybe you accidentally step on it one day. And so it's a little imperfect. And you keep playing with it, but it sort of loses that newness, that uniqueness. And maybe teams start figuring it out. And Shannon makes a good point. There's film on CJ Stroud. So now he's not an anomaly anymore, which is a prime example of what we're talking about. So yeah, I mean, listen, a couple years ago, we thought that Jacksonville was on the rise and they were going to be the next big team in the AFC South. And they got surpassed by Houston last year. So I'm completely with you. Pump the brakes on the Houston Texans. I mean, we've seen a bunch of lists that have them finishing top 10 in the NFL this year. And I think that's way too premature.
More than that. We're talking top 3 in the AFC. It's insanity.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm with you. If you're watching the show, or if you're listening to it later on and you're a fan of the Houston Texans, like calm it down just a little bit. Because I don't want you to do like the Lions or like the Carolina, like my South Carolina Gamecocks. You get your hopes up. Like, we were really good last year. I can't wait for next year. And then next year, you go 500 and you miss the playoffs or you don't go to a bowl game. Like, just temper your expectations going forward with the Texans. Bill, let's kind of briefly touch on, because I want to do like a deep dive into this at some point, because we talked about this a couple shows ago. And that's the fact that EA Sports is launching College Football 25 next month. We are almost a month away. And you and I are both planning on taking a day off because we get the game 3 days early if you pre-order it. Sorry. Yeah. I'm planning on taking the day off. I don't care what anybody else does.
No,
I'm taking it off.
It's all the same for me.
But yeah, with it coming out, we've seen some gameplay video now. We've heard some stuff about what's going on with the game. We actually went into a lot of that the last time out. Bill, I kind of just wanted to ask you, what are you looking forward to most with college football, the video game coming back next month?
Well, to be honest, you put this again. Ryan gives me a list of things we're going to talk about on the show, so I go in and I read some stuff, and I actually came up with a article that I have to send to you from someone that wrote in The Athletic, where he actually was invited down to Orlando to play the game. Now,
I don't care who it is. I hate him already.
Well, yeah, it was, and he wrote the article, and he published. It was published in May, on May 29th. So this is very recent that he played this game. He got 3 hours to spend with the game, and he went through a whole bunch of stuff, and he talks about all the stuff that he played with, all the formation sets and the types of plays, and specific, Wake Forest's specific offense, the mesh option, whatever they call it, the mesh offense. He was like, I want to see these things in the game, and this guy quit playing. He quit playing video games after college because they stopped making NCAA football. He was not a fan of Madden, just like us. And he said, this game is incredible. Like, he basically just like sings praises of this thing he took 10 pages of notes in 6 hours or something like that. Like or 3 days, I don't even know, however much time he had. But he just kept singing the praises. Now, for me personally, what I'm looking forward to is what I always enjoyed on the NCAA football games, and that's roster shaping. I always enjoyed the fact that you have to turn the roster over after a very few seasons. I don't know how many seasons you ever gotten through an NCAA, but let's say you get through
a lot.
10, 12 seasons, because the seasons
14,
go by pretty quickly.
Going.
So you're after just about every 2 to 3 seasons, you are reshaping your roster almost entirely, because players graduate, they're freshmen or eligible to be drafted within 3 years, that kind of thing. Redshirting, all that stuff. I love the roster shaping aspect of NCAA football. I'm looking forward to that the most. That was always the most fun for me with the recruiting and the dynasty and how all that works. I think that's really fun. I almost think that's more fun than playing the game. But, we'll see. I think from what I'm hearing, they rebuilt the entire engine. There's a physics-based tackling involved now. And the guy says, I played Madden 24 before I went down there to play this game because I wanted to, see what the differences were. And he said, this is way better. It does not play like Madden 24.
Thank God.
So my face went,
yeah.
Because that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to play Madden 24.
And then Katie's back in the chat. Watch it suck. No, I listen.
She's just going off over here. I love it. She's just killing it.
So I used to love Road to Glory because back when NCAA was still around, I was still young enough to where I could sort of like get into the fantasy of it. Like, oh yeah, I could be a 5'7" running back that can make it to Madden and export my player into Madden and go from there. I'll tell you, it's even more so than what you're talking about because all that stuff ties in with the online dynasties. Like the last couple of games of college football, the fact that you could build your program against your friends, I think is one of the coolest things to do. Now, NIL is going to play a role in this year's game. There is a dynamic stamina, dynamic health meter that where you're going to have to like manage your roster to keep them healthy for the entire season, to make it to the postseason, to make it to potentially the playoffs or your bowl game or whatever it is at the end of the season. But I think ultimately I'm just ready to get back to playing some football that's fun, that plays fast, where you don't see the linebacker super jump, where the zone read is actually effective because the zone read was huge in NCAA 14. And not that I'm trying to spam the zone read, but you open up the offense when you have that zone read ability. And I think everything that I've read is the fact that they wanted this game to feel faster and to feel like college football. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, that's primarily what I'm looking forward to, is online dynasties with friends where I can build South Carolina into a mediocre program on my own. A dynasty offline where I can have them win national championships because that's the only time we're ever going to see it. And then just being able to enjoy a football game again. Because even though we played Madden 24, I mean, you played it for like 3 games and quit.
It was more
Madden
than that,
20,
but yes, it was not.
No, but we played Madden 23. We had fun with it, but it still had its I don't know what you call it. It still had its negative connotations. It still had its negatives. Did Madden 23, and there's a reason why we haven't paid out of pocket to buy a Madden game in close to 10 years. And it's why I've already pre-ordered NCAA or college football, I should say. So really excited about that. All right, folks, that's NFL and college talk. Now, I hope most of you will stick around because the UFL is coming to an end. We have finally reached the playoff
season. The season is coming to an end.
The season is coming to an end. Sorry, the UFL is not
UFL. Yeah.
The UFL season is coming to an end as we just finished the last weekend of the regular season, which featured both playoff games that you will see this weekend face off against each other in Week 10. Bill, I didn't get a chance to watch these games, but I will tell you right now that Michigan went to Birmingham and lost by a point. Let's start off with the Michigan stat line here. They finished the season 7-3. Due to Michigan Panthers. I guess the thing to note in this game is that star kicker Jake Bates out of Arkansas went 2 of 3 kicking in this game, but missed the 53-yard field goal as time expired that would have given Michigan the win. And Michigan and Birmingham would have finished the season at 8-2. And I don't know if that would have given Michigan the tiebreaker to host the playoff game.
It would not.
It wouldn't?
No.
Well, what are your thoughts on watching Michigan come so close to beating Birmingham here?
I mean, honestly, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we're going to get a good week this week of football. This is going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun. Both games came down to 1 point, so I think we're going to have fun. And I'm hopeful that Michigan actually puts up a fight against Birmingham. I'm glad that game was in Birmingham. If it had been in Michigan, I'm not sure it would have been a moral victory for the Panthers. But I think in this case it was. So I'm really hopeful that we're going to see that again. I mean, that would have been a fun playoff game.
Well, Danny Etling returned at quarterback for the Michigan Panthers and threw for 195 yards and a touchdown, tacked on 36 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown as well. But you look at the other contributors, the other key contributors in this offense, and it is not guys that we have called out all year. Your leading rusher was, I believe it was quarterback Bryce Perkins with 37 yards. Your leading receiver, and I'm not going to be able – Sialsi Mariner, a wide receiver at Utah State, had 110 yards and a touchdown in this game. Guys that we have not called out all year. So, I didn't get to watch the game, but it feels like they were resting their guys for the next week. And if they can come this close to beating Birmingham while resting guys, I like Michigan's chances in the USFL championship game. Let's look over at Birmingham. They finished the season 9-1. They're one blemish coming back in week 8, I believe, to the Arlington Renegades. But I digress. Adrian Martinez, another decent performance here, 163 yards through the air, did have an interception. You saw some of their key contributors in this game as well. Jace Sternberger, however, was their leading receiver with 53 yards on 2 receptions with a touchdown. Bill, Birmingham looks beatable. They are beatable.
Yes.
You just talked about it. Like, do you think that Michigan has a real shot this weekend?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would have said no prior to this week.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I said, it made me hopeful. That was a close game. That it was well fought by the Michigan Panthers, and it surprised me, to be honest. I didn't think that it was going to be that close. I didn't think Etling was going to be able to carry that team. That's not even their starter. So, yeah, I think it could be fun this week, or it could just be a destruction of Birmingham getting serious, not and caring now, and we'll see. But that's the reason to watch it. That's why I want to be able to. Actually, I probably won't be able to see that game. I have something going on this weekend, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be a fun game. I'll probably record it.
Well, a quick reminder: if you're watching the show live with us on X, Facebook, or YouTube, leave a comment in the chat and join the conversation. We've had a couple of people join the conversation tonight. We've had some fun with it. The next playoff game features the San Antonio Brahmas taking on the St. Louis Battlehawks, and another 1-point game as San Antonio falls to St. Louis by a score of 13-12. This does not seem like it was a very exciting game. Let's stick off with San Antonio, who also finished the season 7-3, but they played a couple quarterbacks in this game. Quentin Dormady did not have he had a decent game, 188 yards and a touchdown. Chase Garbers threw a little bit, 40 yards with an interception. But again, some names. Jontre Kirkland was a star in the XFL last season. He had a nice game, 7 catches, 120 yards and a touchdown. The defense got after it, 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. It was the return of A.J. McCarron for St. Louis, or was it his second week back from his injury? Regardless.
I think he played prior week, but he didn't play great. He did not play well.
Yeah. So San Antonio scores late in this game with, I forgot how much time was left, like maybe about 2 minutes. They score, they get a 2-point conversion. Now they trail by 1. I'm not sure why they went for it there, why they wouldn't go for 3 to tie the game, but they would get the ball back with 50 seconds left. And they would go ahead.
They did score with 1:56 to play.
Yeah.
They actually scored on the 2-point conversion, and St. Louis challenged the play, not for the score because they were looking at it, but they actually challenged, because it's a super challenge. You can challenge everything. They challenged for an illegal man downfield, and they were right. So they ended up calling the penalty, and then they didn't convert on the next play. So they actually, San Antonio actually scored to take the lead, got it removed, and then didn't score. So that's the wildness of the UFL. It's like, oh, super challenge? No, we saw a penalty here, and you missed it, and they were right.
Well, the beauty of it was they did get the ball back and went downfield and attempted a field goal with, I believe, 8 seconds left and missed it. Same thing that Michigan did in their game against Birmingham.
Yep.
So San Antonio falls, and they finished the season 7-3. But again, like we've talked about it on the show, Bill, it depends on what Quentin Dormady shows up as far as what we're going to see from San Antonio. Do you think they got a shot against St. Louis this weekend?
Yeah, let's not forget that this team, it's weird. They started Chase Garbers again, and he was not good. Then Dormady came and played well. So here we got Dormady playing well again. Now, we don't remember we had this situation where we didn't know what Dormady we were going to get. Dormady has turned it up again. So he's actually been playing well for a while, but he got benched because Garbers was the original starter, and now they didn't want to take his job away from him coming back from injury. But Dormady's outplaying him. So we'll see who gets the start this weekend. I think either way, you're going to see a lot of Quentin Dormady because he seems to be the better passer than Chase Garbers. And they have players, man. That's a decent team, and they have the best scoring defense in the UFL. The San Antonio Brahmas had the best defense in the NFL. So, yeah, they absolutely have a chance against St. Louis. St. Louis did not score points, and if San Antonio can figure out how to either get that 2-point conversion or hit the 51-yard field goal as time expired, they win the game. And San Antonio, and this is going to be odd. If San Antonio finds a way to beat St. Louis in St. Louis, San Antonio will be in the championship the next week in St. Louis. That'll be really strange. So oddly enough, I've been rooting for San Antonio all season, but because of the fact that the championship game is in St. Louis, I want to see a giant crowd there. I almost want St. Louis to win this game this week so we can see a massive crowd for the UFL championship.
I'm right there with you. Let's talk about St. Louis for a second because it was the return of A.J. McCarron. Very lackluster numbers, very pedestrian numbers. 4-1 A.J. McCarron, 115 yards with a touchdown and an interception. But you look at Jacob Sailors, 12 carries, 50 yards, 4.2 yards per carry. You get 6.8 yards per carry out of Wayne Gallman. But again, without the passing game, you've got to rely on the ground game. And the defense got 2 sacks, 4 breakups, and the interception of Chase Garbers. But like you said, I don't know if we really need to talk more about St. Louis because they get the home game this weekend. And it'll be really interesting to see if they can somehow get that magic they had early in the year and show why they thought that they had a shot at the XFL championship last year. And go from there. Bill, we've had some questions from Volley Polly coming in on the Facebook page. And so we're going to touch on some of these questions tonight. And let's start off with the fact that the UFL season has come to an end. And so we need to talk about UFL MVP. So, Bill, I got a couple names in mind. And while we were talking about this, I've changed my mind yet again. Who do you have as your UFL MVP?
It's funny you have multiple names in mind. I do too. It's hard not to give it to Luis Perez. The reason I'm not going to give it to Luis Perez is that team found ways to lose all season long. Until late in the season, they've started winning some games. That's too bad because that's what Arlington did last year, and he ended up winning the XFL championship. I personally think it has to go to Adrian Martinez. He's the quarterback on the best team. He was third in I almost said it again, the UFL in passing, and he led the league in rushing as a quarterback. Averaged over 9 yards per carry, I think, rushing the football. So, yeah, I think it has to go to Adrian Martinez. I think he's the best player on the best team, and that's where I would hand it. I don't think they do as well, honestly. I think Birmingham has a handful of losses if Matt Corral continue to start, and Adrian Martinez didn't play the way he did down the stretch.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I will mention the fact that we saw them go back and forth, but Quentin Dormady finished the regular season 5th in passing in the UFL, just behind AJ McCarron and just behind Adrian Martinez. What's crazy for me to think about is the fact that your top 2 leading passers in this league are Luis Perez with by far more than anybody else in the league by 500 yards. He had 2,300 passing yards. Number 2 was Jordan Ta'amu for the DC Defenders, who had 1,845. Those teams collectively went 7-13. 2 of the worst teams in the UFL. Well, I wouldn't say Arlington was one of the worst teams because they did sort of turn. I mean, they were the last winless team in the UFL, and they finished the season on, I believe, a 3-game winning streak. They won 3 out of their last 4. But I digress. The other guy that I was thinking of, you're going to call me crazy, and it was until I saw what Andre Smith from St. Louis was doing, the kicker for St. Louis, 19 of 21 field goals on the year, 91% field goal completion or field goal percentage with a long of 61 yards. But my original pick for MVP was going to be a very, very, I guess, homeristic
Don't
pick.
do it. Don't do
it. I was going to say Jake Bates, the kicker from Michigan, primarily because this dude, for the first half of the season, didn't miss, and that included a number of 60-plus yard field goals. Jake Bates, we're going to talk about in a second. Jake Bates will be on an NFL roster next season. More than likely, he will stay in Michigan, and he will be on an NFL roster next season.
Actually,
but he's not.
I'm not going to. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt. I'm pumping the brakes on Jake Bates.
I love him.
I loved him, but he has fallen to a 77.3% clip as a kicker. And in the I keep saying XFL, in the UFL, I love that league so much. I miss the XFL. Anyway, it's the same league. In the UFL, like you said, we've had incredible kickers in the UFL. And, you talked about Smith from, actually, how do you even say that? Smith, Andre Smith. What a last name. SZMYT. That's awesome.
Yep.
He is at 90.5%. That's with 19. You said 19 for 21. There's a kicker that's actually better than that, Ryan. The Memphis Showboats kicker, even though he doesn't get a chance to show that he can kick extra points because they don't, I guess you don't kick extra points in the UFL. And the point is, he's 16 for 17. Dude has kicked almost he's 94.1%. His long is a 57-yard field goal. So we have kickers for days in the UFL. Jake Bates isn't even in the top 10, in top 5 anymore. Sorry. I know he's kicked some bombs, and we were so excited about this guy because he didn't miss in Michigan. Then they put him on the road, and he can't see the goalpost for some reason.
Yeah, I will just go back and say that despite the fact that they have a losing record, I'm giving my MVP to Luis Perez. I mean, 67% completions, just over 2,300 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, the dude. He was sacked 13 times. The guy, and the guy, he's mobile. He's able to get out in the open and run the ball. But when the rest of your team lets you down, you're gonna look bad, and that's what happened to Luis Perez and the Arlington Renegades. Again, if you recall, last year Arlington snuck their way into the playoffs because of the way the playoff structure in the XFL was last year. That the best 4 teams didn't get in, and the worst of the playoff teams was Arlington, who won the XFL championship last year. So my MVP does go to one Luis Perez, the quarterback for the Arlington Renegades. But since we've talking about all these kickers, Bill, is there anybody in the UFL that you think should be or will be on an NFL roster next season? Because I think you talked about the fact that the UFL is pumping out kickers for a league that does not kick extra points. I feel like half of the kickers in the UFL are going to be playing for NFL teams next season.
Yeah, as valuable as kickers are in the NFL, I think that you could probably sign some of these UFL kickers for a lot less than some of the other kickers in the NFL are. I mean, perfect example. And I like the guy, Jason Sanders, that plays for Miami. I think he's like $3.8 million per year. I think you can get the kickers from the UFL for a lot cheaper. Other than that, you know what? I had a hard time because, and I'll tell you why I had a hard time. We got posed this question, and there's a player I absolutely love in the UFL, and so do you, Hakeem Butler. Mm-hmm. The man is a freak. He's huge, and I hate to call him a freak in a good way, a freak in a Javon Curse way. If you remember Javon Curse, the Florida, they actually called him the freak, right? Hakeem is massive. I think he's 6'6", like 235 pounds. He's really fast. I mean, he had an 80-yard reception this season. He was able to outrun smaller cornerbacks. He led the league in receiving, 45 catches, 650 yards, 5 touchdowns. The problem I have, and I immediately look at that and go, this guy's, and we said it last season, this guy's got to be in the NFL. Well, he had a tryout. I think he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who don't have great receivers.
They cut him.
Yeah, and they cut him. He didn't even make the practice squad. So it makes it really difficult for me to pick any players. I went down a couple other, nobody in the league as a rusher is better than Abram Smith was last year in the XFL, right? He didn't make a roster. On defense, I'm like, okay, what do defenses need in the NFL? Well, they need sacks, right? Well, the best sack guy in the UFL is Breeland Speaks. He was a second rounder from the Kansas City Chiefs in 2018. And he washed out, mainly because he did drugs, unfortunately. So he had a substance abuse issue and eventually got cut. So he's not going to go back to the NFL, and he's destroying the UFL in sacks. He has 9.5. The next guy has 7. He has 13 tackles for loss. That also leads. The next guy has 9. So he's the best rusher, a guy that, disruptor in the UFL. He's not going to the NFL. So then I said, okay, Ryan, what else are we looking for here, right? How about guys that can play cover? What are you looking for? Well, I guess the best one, and this is the one I came up with, and I think this is a guy you talked about in the primer, but Markel Roby from the Houston Roughnecks is the one that I came up with. He came out of college, I believe, in 2021, so he's still a pretty young guy, and I believe he went to Pittsburgh State, which I think their mascot is the Gorillas. I swear. Like, I think I saw him in like a Gorillas uniform. But Markel Roby, this is what I was looking for. He had 8 pass breakups in the UFL over the course of the season that led the league. He had 3 interceptions, and that's, I think, in the top 10. I think top 10. It also
he's tied for one. He's tied for number 1.
Right. It also led the league.
Yeah.
And he did not do poorly when it came to tackles. He's actually 9th in the league in tackles. So altogether, and I wanted to look at Kai Nakua. I was excited about Kai Nakua. We talked about him every single week making plays early in the season. He fell off. We haven't talked about him in weeks. So I guess if I'm going to talk about one player that I want to see try to make a roster, that man is Markel Roby.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I will tell you, I like the idea of Taco Charlton making his way back to the league. He finished the season with 5 sacks, 14 tackles. He had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery in the league. I've been sort of tooting the horn for Vic Beasley. He only had 4 sacks this season for the Arlington Renegades. I will tell you, I think half of the kickers from the UFL are going to wind up in the NFL this season. I would like to see a guy that is not going to be at the top of the list when it comes to stat lines. Based on what we were able to see when he was able to get on the field, I would like to see Anthony McFarland Jr. I called him AJ because Anthony Jr. I want to see Anthony McFarland get another shot in the NFL because when that guy was on the field, he was electric. When he got out in the open field, he was electric. I don't think he's going to be the bruiser that can break a bunch of tackles. But if there's one guy that I want to call out by name, I want to say Anthony McFarland. But I also, I don't think Adrian Martinez is going to make a roster. I don't think guys like Jacob Sailors, your leading rushers in the UFL, Matthew Colburn from Michigan, 400 yards, like 400 yards in 10 games, like that's less than 50 yards a game or something like that, or right at 50 yards a game. He talked about Akeem Butler not being able to make a roster. You got guys like Jontre Kirkland, Tyler Vaughns. I think Sal Cannella might be able to find a way in the league as a tight end, as a receiving tight end. But it's only for teams that are struggling for maybe a backup tight end because he's not going to start in the NFL. But yeah, I'm with you as far as Roby goes. But the number one guy that I would like to see in the NFL would be Anthony McFarland Jr., the running back out of San Antonio. And I hope we get to see a healthy, what's the healthy helping? Is that how it goes? What's the, you know what I'm trying to say? I hope we get to see a lot of him in the XFL championship game this weekend.
UFL. XFL. This one this week.
I got it right this time.
The conference.
Boom.
The conference. That's what we're talking about. I can't stop calling it the XFL altogether.
Yeah. Well, in the same vein of what we've been talking about, Bill, is there anybody that played in the NFL last year that did not really do all that well that you think could benefit from playing in the UFL?
Anybody that plays quarterback that isn't a first or second stringer. Anyone.
I think not Sam Darnold. Helping. Boom. Shannon knew what I was trying to say.
Shannon coming through.
Hot damn, that makes me so happy. No, who's the guy that played for Zach Wilson? I would like to see Zach Wilson play in the UFL because he's not an NFL quarterback, but I think he's better than I think he's better than Quentin Dormady. If we're talking about the other quarterbacks in the league, I think he's better than Reed Sinnett, than Case Cookus, than Danny Etling. I think Zach Wilson would do fine in the UFL.
I'm not sure. I'm not. I don't know if I'm going to go there. I don't know. You know what, Ryan? I would like to see Zach Wilson play in the UFL so we can say Wrong again, Ryan. He's not better than those guys. I mean, I don't know.
Haven't
how
heard that
good
one in
this
a
kid-
while.
Zach Wilson is still living off of his hype
Yeah.
coming out of
Well,
BYU.
he's not going to be starting this year, so.
But he's living off of scouts' hype. His arm is live, and he's still making a paycheck for that reason. And he's never done anything.
Well,
it's crazy.
Here's the question that I didn't pose, but I kind of wanted to bring it up on the fly to see what you think. You're a big soccer fan. We talk about relegation and promotion. How would you feel about relegation and promotion with the UFL and the NFL?
Terrible.
Where the Carolina Panthers would get sent down to the UFL?
Horrible idea.
And the winner
run the league.
No, they wouldn't.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
Last year's Carolina Panthers?
Absolutely.
They wouldn't beat Birmingham.
Oh yes, yes.
I don't think
it might be a fairly close game, but
I don't think the 2023 Carolina Panthers would be able to beat Arlington.
You know what we forgot? We didn't talk about Adrian Martinez possibly getting a shot in the NFL.
We vaguely talked about it because of the fact.
Wouldn't that be a guy that we would want to see get a shot in the NFL? He didn't get drafted. This was his year, that he should have been drafted. He didn't get signed as an undrafted free agent. He didn't get anything. Came out of college this year, got nothing.
I mean, he's not,
and played really well.
I would love to see him on an NFL roster, but he's going to be a backup wherever he goes.
Sure.
And I'm not sure how many NFL teams are looking for backup quarterbacks.
There's not any of these guys that are going to be a starter on an NFL team. Not
of course not. No. Except for kickers. The kickers will start somewhere.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway. All right, Bill. This weekend, we get the USFL Championship game, a rematch of the Week 10 game that saw Birmingham win by a point. The Michigan Panthers go to Birmingham as a 5-point underdog in the USFL Conference Championship. This game will take place Saturday at 3 p.m. over on ABC. Bill, what say you? Who wins the USFL Championship for a shot at the inaugural UFL Championship?
I think the Stallions take it seriously this week and lay a whooping on the Panthers.
I'm going the opposite way.
Really?
Even if the Panthers don't win it outright, they cover. They just played them without a lot of their key contributors.
We'll see.
And came short of a field goal as time expired.
You know what I would
Michigan,
like to see? You know what I would like to is some butts in the seats down there in Birmingham for the USFL Championship. I mean, come on, Birmingham. Do you really want this team? 7,000 people in the stands, and I think that's reaching. There were 700 people in the stands in Birmingham, and they've added an extra 0. It was awful.
It was a typo.
Yeah.
All right, Bill's taking Birmingham. I'm taking Michigan. The XFL Championship game takes place Sunday at 7 p.m. over on Fox as the San Antonio Brahmas take on the St. Louis Battlehawks. The St. Louis Battlehawks, a 3-point favorite. Bill, I'm going to go San Antonio. I think A.J. McCarron is still banged up. I also, again, we saw how close San Antonio came to winning. And to your point where you think that Birmingham is going to take this game seriously against Michigan, I think San Antonio is coming into this game angry in the fact that they should have won last week. And I think they're going to come in and they're going to be able to knock off St. Louis and have to play St. Louis in consecutive weekends to try to win the UFL Championship. Bill, I'm assuming that
three consecutive weekends.
Bill, what say you? San Antonio at St. Louis.
I'm actually going to agree with you. I think San Antonio takes this game. I was shocked that San Antonio played with St. Louis in the last game, and that was a playoff game. Whoever won that game got the 1 seed going into the next week. So San Antonio had to win that game. They would have played in San Antonio. Now, again, these guys don't care because they all live in Arlington. So yeah. But the reality is you want to have that home crowd. I think they would have, obviously they want to play for the UFL Championship. They want to be part of a championship team. They wanted to win that game was it Sunday? Was it Sunday that they played? I think it was.
Yeah. No, Saturday.
Saturday? Was it Saturday?
Yeah.
I did watch it, but I don't remember what day it was. Yeah, I think San Antonio is a better overall team right now. And I think AJ McCarron is struggling. 10 for 24. In the last game, that's not going to get it done. If he plays better and Dormady doesn't play that well, we don't ever know what we're going to get from Quentin Dormady. It could be a St. Louis walk, but I think it's going to be. I think the defense of the Brahmas is pretty good. So the Vamos Brahmas on this one.
Yeah, to your point, I don't think it's going to make for a great aesthetic if St. Louis doesn't win the XFL championship this weekend, being that the UFL championship will be in their home stadium and nobody's going to show up. Nobody's going to show up to watch the team that beat. Yeah. Bill, we made it to the end of the show in the overtime segment. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we sign off for tonight?
I think I'm good, man. I think I'm good. I'm not going to be able to watch the games this weekend. I will have to record them, so I'll have to try to at least catch highlights or fast forward a little bit. I'm not going to spend 6 hours on Monday or Tuesday watching all the games, but I obviously will be watching scores, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, my overtime is going to go to the Greenville Comedy Zone. If you haven't been paying attention, if you live in the Greenville area, Greenville Comedy Zone hosts open mic nights just about every Thursday. And I have gotten on stage multiple times there, and I will continue to do so. Support your local comedians wherever it is that you are, wherever it is that you're watching this, because otherwise, those little small comedy clubs are going to go by the wayside. So if you're in the Greenville area, come out tomorrow night and watch some guys get on some open mics and get about 3 to 5 minutes to try to be funny. And if they're not funny, you can laugh at them anyway. So that's my overtime segment. If you want to find this show on social media, go to facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns. A lot of you guys were watching on Facebook tonight. On X, I've had a couple of X viewers tonight, 4 actually right now watching over on X, at Tapouts and TDs, and on YouTube, at Tapouts and Touchdowns is the YouTube handle. We haven't gone live on Instagram but once, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, at Ryan W. Frick is the handle there. Again, we've got one more week of UFL with the playoffs this weekend, and then next week will be the UFL championship game. And we may take a little break, to be completely honest, because this is sort of the dead period. We may get to talk about some college football. Maybe we do a show where we just talk about the fact that we played college football on PlayStation, and it'll just be an hour long conversation about the PlayStation 5 version of EA Sports College Football 25, and we can just let everybody join and talk about what they like and don't like about the game. But as far as this show goes, that's all the time we've got. For Baker Bill, it's your guy, Bully Rye, and we'll see you next time right here on Tap House and Touchdowns.